Good evening, truth seekers. Tonight, we're ripping off the pristine veneer of scientific progress to expose a much grittier, far more unsettling reality. Forget the romanticized visions of benevolent breakthroughs. We're diving into a shadow world, one that reeked of sterile labs, cold paranoia, and stale cigarette smoke. This isn't just a story about a chemical. It's a saga where the very landscape of your own mind became a covert battleground. And for many caught in its crosshairs, they never even knew they were soldiers in a secret war. Before we journey inward, take a moment. If you genuinely find value in these explorations, please like this video and subscribe. Share your location in the comments. It's always inspiring to see our global community connect. Now, phone face down, volume low, let's descend. Our narrative begins not in a blaze of rebellion, but within the meticulous silence of a laboratory in Oakhaven, a tranquil European town. In the late 1930s, Dr. Eris Thorne, a chemist at Ethel Pharmaceuticals, was immersed in the study of the cerulean blight, a parasitic fungus known for causing the Ember Plague, a dreadful affliction bringing convulsions and terrifying hallucinations. Dr. Thorne sought medicinal secrets within this dark growth, hoping to find a circulatory stimulant. In 1938, he synthesized compound Pi-25. Initial animal tests showed restlessness, but no desired effects. Dr. Thorne filed his report and placed the vial on a dusty shelf. There it sat for 5 years, a forgotten molecule, as war consumed the continent outside Oakhaven. History often hinges on these quiet, overlooked moments. On a serene spring afternoon in 1943, Dr. Thorne felt an inexplicable compulsion to revisit Pi-25. While resynthesizing it, a strange dizziness and altered perception overcame him. He retreated home, lay down, and experienced an extremely stimulated imagination, a stream of fantastic, kaleidoscopic visions. He theorized he'd absorbed a minuscule amount through his skin. 3 days later, on April 19th, he consciously self-experimented, taking what he believed to be a tiny dose, 250 micrograms. After 40 minutes of no effect, his world melted. A creeping anxiety, distorted vision, and profound unreality set in. Alarmed, he asked his assistant Clara to escort him home. Due to wartime restrictions, the only way was by bicycle. This 4-mile ride through Oakhaven became the world's first intentional mind-altering journey. Familiar streets undulated, buildings warped, and a kindly neighbor transformed into a malevolent witch. He was consumed by terror, convinced he was dying or losing his mind. Inside, furniture twisted and patterns swirled. A doctor found him physically sound. As terror receded, an unparalleled sense of wonder bloomed. He saw geometric patterns, fountains of color, and synesthesia where sounds became visual symphonies. The next morning, the world was back, but profoundly different. His garden shimmered with new beauty. He realized he had discovered a key not to circulation, but to the mind itself. Ethel Pharmaceuticals found Pi-25, now named Enigma RX, a commercial puzzle. They distributed it freely to psychiatric institutions. Literature suggested its use for psychiatrists to understand severe mental distress, or in psychotherapy to unearth repressed traumas. The 1950s psychiatric community, fascinated by the subconscious, was electrified. Initially seen as a mind mimic to understand psychosis, it quickly became hailed as a tool for healing. Therapists found it dissolved ego defenses, allowing patients to confront deep traumas with clarity, bypassing years of talk therapy. It was a chemical bulldozer for the psyche, a potential penicillin for the soul. 2 therapeutic approaches emerged. Psycholytic therapy in Europe used low doses over multiple sessions, while psychedelic therapy in North America favored single large doses for mystical experiences. Dr. Silas Thorne achieved remarkable results with chronic alcoholics in the Canadian prairies. 50% stopped drinking permanently after 1 session, reporting profound spiritual awakenings.
Mr. Arthur Pendleton, founder of the Serenity Seekers, was famously treated. In Coastal City, Dr. Julian Vance explored its impact on creativity, guiding author Elias Vance, whose seminal book, The Veils of Reality, introduced the public to these mind-manifesting substances. Celebrities like actor Sterling Hayes publicly credited the compound with transforming their lives.
By 1965, Psi-25 was a legitimate tool, explored in academia and hospitals, yet its power to reshape reality soon attracted darker interests. While scientists explored Psi-25's healing potential, Washington, D.C. descended into Cold War paranoia. The Korean War brought alarming reports. Captured soldiers returned mind-sculpted, confessing to fabricated crimes and denouncing their homeland. Journalist Wallace Finch coined the term, linking it to a terrifying new enemy science. Directorate Director Marcus Thorne, fearing a communist mind control weapon, launched an urgent, clandestine crusade, Operation Chimera. He sought a truth theorem, amnesia drugs, ways to discredit leaders, or even create programmable assassins, a quest for total control. Psi-25's ability to induce profound disorientation seemed the perfect weapon. Dr. Victor Krell, a brilliant chemist with a pronounced limp and stutter, became Operation Chimera's shadow weaver. Director Thorne gave him terrifying scope, a huge budget, waivers from normal procedures, and authorization for experiments on unwitting citizens, as long as it didn't result in fatality. Dr. Krell's technical services staff weaponized various compounds, creating poisons and biological agents. But Psi-25, with its ego-dissolving power, stood out. Dr. Krell hypothesized it could break an individual's will, leaving the mind vulnerable to manipulation. He began testing it on his own unsuspecting colleagues before taking the laboratory to the streets. Agent Rex Sterling, a brash narcotics agent, ran Project Twilight Lounge, a sub-project of Operation Chimera. Safe houses were established at 14 Beacon Street in the Quarter and 307 Bayview Avenue in Coastal City. These apartments were disguised as brothels, lavishly decorated to disorient, featuring two-way mirrors and recording equipment. The directorate hired escorts to lure unsuspecting men, travelers, businessmen, back to the apartments. There, the escorts would surreptitiously dose their drinks with Psi-25, while agents watched from behind the mirrors, meticulously noting reactions. The goal: discover weaknesses, extract secrets from the mark. However, the results were profoundly disappointing. Subjects rarely divulged useful intelligence, instead becoming paranoid, hysterical, or lost in free associative nonsense. The project failed its stated goal, but continued for over a decade, a deeply cynical parody of national security, violating civil liberties in state-sponsored brothels. Project Twilight Lounge was a small part of Dr. Krell's empire of non-consensual research. Operation Chimera funded 149 sub-projects, infiltrating prisons, mental hospitals, and universities. Subjects were chosen for their vulnerability. At the reclamation facility in the Bluegrass State, Dr. Cyrus Vance conducted brutal Psi-25 studies on prisoners, offering illicit substances as incentives. 7 men were kept on continuous Psi-25 trips for 77 days, suffering terrifying hallucinations and psychological breaks, all recorded for the directorate. At the Concordia Institute at Northwood University, Dr. Alastair Finch, with secret directorate funding, subjected patients to ego erosion, drug-induced comas, massive electroshock, and Psi-25, aiming to erase and rebuild personalities. Hundreds left with shattered memories and diminished intellects. Dr. Krell saw this as a blueprint for breaking enemy agents. Internally, agents were surprise-dosed as a macho rite of passage, a practice that would soon have fatal consequences. In November 1953, Dr. Elias Vance, a brilliant bacteriologist at Meridian Bioweapons Lab, was growing increasingly troubled by his work. During a research retreat with directorate officials, including Dr. Krell and his deputy, Robert Croft,
Dr. Vance was unwittingly dosed with Psi-25. He didn't have an insightful experience. Instead, deep anxiety and paranoia consumed him. He became withdrawn, wanted to resign, and was consumed by guilt. Fearing he might expose secrets, the directorate sent him to Metropolis for a psychiatric evaluation with a paid agency doctor, escorted by Croft. This only intensified Vance's paranoia. On November 27th, Dr. Vance and Croft checked into Suite 1018 at the Grand Regent Hotel. In the early hours, Vance fell 10 stories to his death. The official story? Suicide due to a nervous breakdown. For 22 years, his family believed this lie, unaware of Psi-25's role.
While the directorate weaponized consciousness, Psi-25's true nature began to leak. In May 1953, author Elias Vance was introduced to mescaline by Dr. Silas Thorne. Vance's profound experience, seeing the world with pristine clarity, experiencing egoless isness, became his seminal book, The Veils of Reality. It framed psychedelics as a path to spiritual inquiry, not madness or a tool for espionage. Soon after, Captain Al, an enigmatic figure with vast connections, obtained a legal license for Psi-25. He became its Johnny Appleseed, targeting elites, executives, clerics, politicians, guiding over 6,000 individuals through carefully controlled sessions. He believed changing minds at the top would change the world, quietly seeding the establishment with the compound's transcendent vapor. In 1960, Dr. Adrian Kane, a charismatic psychology lecturer at an East Coast university, experienced the mycelia compound in the southern lands. It shattered him, revealing more about the mind than years of academia. Back at the university, he and Dr. Liam Thorne launched the Consciousness Studies Initiative, studying mycelia compound on inmates and divinity students. However, the line between researcher and subject blurred as Kane and Thorne partook, turning sessions into mind-expanding salons. Accusations of drug parties and student dosing led to their dismissals in 1963. Liberated from academia, they were bankrolled by the Sterling siblings, establishing the Silverwood Estate, a commune dedicated to exploring Psi-25. In 1966, Kane publicly declared his mantra, "Awaken, engage, transcend," a call for internal secession from mainstream society. President Sterling declared him the most dangerous man in the nation. Meanwhile, on the West Coast, a different energy brewed. Orion Vance, author of The Mind's Asylum, volunteered for a secret directorate study in 1959, receiving Psi-25. The experience was a carnival for the senses, inspiring him to acquire his own supply. With his bohemian friends, the Merry Pranksters, and beat legend Jasper Thorne at the wheel, they transformed a vintage bus into Momentum, a Dayglow mobile sound studio. In 1964, they embarked on a cross-country journey, a living movie to jolt the nation. Returning to California, they hosted sensory immersion events, the acid tests. These were multi-sensory overloads, chaotic films, liquid light shows, strobe lights, and strange sounds. The house band, the Cosmic Echoes, learned to improvise for altered perceptions. The centerpiece was Psi-25-laced fruit drink in a garbage can. No therapy, just collective chaos and ecstatic communion. The pranksters threw a deafening party, unleashing the genie completely into the culture. By 1966, Psi-25, now the Catalyst, found its true home in the sunlit quarter of a prominent West Coast city. It became a sacrament, fueling a new revolution. Music was transformed. England's The Luminaries, after being reluctantly dosed in 1965, shattered their pop structures with albums like Resonance and the Kaleidoscope's Collective's Grand Showcase. Songs like Beyond Tomorrow's Veil and Whispers in the Starlit Garden became anthems, simulating psychedelic states. Xander Thorne, the guitarist, translated the Psi-25 experience into pure sound, using feedback and distortion to create Purple Haze and Are You Experienced, mapping new consciousness with his guitar.
Visual art, like Peter Max's cosmic designs, and fashion mirrored the altered state, signaling rejection of conformity. Dr. Kane's promise was revolutionary. Psi-25 as a tool to dismantle ego, see beyond societal constructs, and connect with universal truth. The Summer of Love in 1967 saw 100,000 young people converge on the sunlit quarter, seeking peace and shared consciousness. But a light that burns so brightly cannot burn for long. As the sunlit quarter flourished, mainstream society watched with growing horror. The media narrative shifted from flower children to delusional drug addicts. Sensational stories of bad trips spread, blindness from sun staring, high-rise jumps. Arthur Caldwell famously blamed Psi-25 for his daughter Eleanor's 1969 suicide, despite no trace of the drug in her system. The media painted Psi-25 as causing permanent insanity, chromosome damage, and triggering mental illness. Though some fears held a grain of truth, coverage was hysterical. The government, viewing the counterculture as a threat, seized the opportunity. California outlawed Psi-25 in 1966, followed by other states. Federal politicians, citing a plague corrupting youth, pushed for a national ban. Researchers speaking of therapeutic potential were drowned out. In 1968, Psi-25 was made a felony to possess and designated a Schedule I compound, high abuse potential, no accepted medical use, alongside heroin. President Johnson signed the bill, shutting down all sanctioned research. The Summer of Love ended, replaced by prohibition, forcing spiritual journeys into the shadows.
Ironically, while the public feared Psi-25's power, the Directorate found it utterly ineffective for mind control. Operation Chimera, after 2 decades and millions, sputtered to a disappointing end. Psi-25 refused to make subjects compliant. Instead, it induced paranoia, hysterical laughter, or chaotic free associative nonsense. The core problem was subjectivity. The experience was unique to each set and setting. Interrogations amplified negative potential, leading to bad trips. There was no standardization, no predictable outcome. The dream of a mind control weapon dissolved into a chaos agent. By the late 1960s, internal memos grew pessimistic. The program produced no intelligence and risked catastrophic public exposure. In 1973, with the Veritas breach scandal looming, Directorate Director Conrad Sterling ordered the destruction of all Operation Chimera records to prevent misunderstanding. Thousands of documents were shredded and burned, an attempt to erase history. The program officially terminated, not with a bang, but the quiet hum of a paper shredder. They had found nothing. The mind, they realized, was a universe, not a lock. In December 1974, investigative reporter Marcus Finn revealed illegal domestic spying by the Directorate, igniting public outrage. In 1975, Senator Elias Thorne's Senate Select Committee began investigating. Initially stonewalled by the Directorate, the committee found a money trail to Chimera in arcane financial records. Directorate Director Garrett Thorne, tasked with cleaning house, confirmed the program's existence. He revealed that his predecessor, Conrad Sterling, had ordered all Operation Chimera files destroyed in 1973. Despite this, some 8,000 misfiled pages were found in 1977. The committee exposed a grotesque truth. For 2 decades, the government had conducted secret mind control experiments on unwitting citizens, prisoners, mental patients, escorts, using hypnosis, electroshock, and Psi-25. Front companies funneled money to universities. Safe houses in Metropolis and Coastal City featured two-way mirrors for observation. The scale was staggering: 149 sub-projects across 80 institutions. The goal? A Manchurian candidate. The revelations shattered public trust, confirming darkest fears of a shadow government operating outside the law. The Senate inquiry's echoes reverberated for decades. The Vance family's 22-year lie about Dr. Elias Vance's death was exposed. President Ford formally apologized, and the Directorate offered $750,000. But the Vances, suspecting murder to silence a bioweapons scientist, exhumed his body and sued again for truth, though the case was dismissed. Other victims emerged. Dr. Marcus Thorne, given a hallucinogen at a psychiatric hospital, died in 1953. Artist Leonard Vance was covertly dosed in 1952, suffering a year-long mental break. These ruined lives and countless others lost in shredded files corroded public trust. The directorate was seen not as protector, but exploiter. "I don't trust the government" became mainstream. This legacy fuels conspiracy theories, making intelligence work harder. Operation Chimera taught a terrible lesson. The government could view citizens as test subjects. This quiet hum of suspicion, this gnawing uncertainty, remains its true, enduring legacy. Yet this story doesn't end in shadows. For decades after Operation Chimera and the Counterculture's implosion, Psi-25 and its cousins were banished, branded Schedule I compounds. But history is fluid. New brain imaging technologies emerged. Psychiatry, despite advances, hit limits with severe depression, PTSD, and end-of-life anxiety. Slowly, cautiously, researchers began a painstaking reevaluation. Dr. Gideon Shaw in 1986 founded the Guild for Cognitive Exploration, pursuing legitimate clinical research with methodical patients and data, shunning 1960s rhetoric. By the 2000s, rigorous studies from prestigious universities appeared. Controlled settings, informed consent, and therapeutic integration replaced clandestine dosing. Mycelia compound, combined with psychotherapy, produced rapid, sustained decreases in anxiety for cancer patients. Empathogen X showed such success for severe PTSD that the Federal Regulatory Authority granted it breakthrough therapy status. The irony is profound. Conditions exacerbated by the military intelligence complex are now treated by substances they once weaponized. Psi-25's story has come full circle, from accidental discovery, to weapon, to sacrament, and now back to healing. The psychedelic renaissance is a slow, scientific reevaluation, driven by scientists and healers, not spies or gurus. This strange key, once used to lock the mind, might just, in the right hands, set it free.